Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, how are my snipers doing today? I hope you guys are doing fantastic. Listen up. The markets have been crazy, especially with Trump announcing all these tariffs, a bunch of other stuff too as well. We won't dive too much into that today, as we will mainly focus on Turbo, but we will also be discussing a few other things that are up. Police sales very busy, but today we are back, and tomorrow we should have the schedule back to normal, where we upload everything at 8 a.m., 2 p.m., and then 8 p.m. EST. But yeah, I mean, ladies and gentlemen, Jesus, things have been absolutely crazy. When we go to something like Turbo, we can see that we are currently 271 in the rankings. Pretty weak, if I do say so myself. We are roughly at 120 million market cap, 35 million volume. So volume still obviously great, especially for the ratio of the market cap and pretty much the context of how we have been moving over the last few weeks. Overall, coins have been moving kind of sideways and a little bit down, but they have slowed down massively compared to January and February, and even the beginning of March, some might say, right? So when we go to the holders, ladies and gentlemen, we can see that we are roughly around the all-time high holders. We are only six away, so seven away. So not bad considering price has been going down. I know a lot of you are asking, man, when is it going to reverse? When are things going, when are things going to look green? When is it going to be altcoin season? And I mean, ladies and gentlemen, we talked about this before, but we'll talk about it again. For something like Turbo to have its shining moment, uh, once again, we have to realize, right? We have to realize that you know, Bitcoin has to finish playing out, creating higher lows, right? Higher lows, boom, these are the two lows, these are the two highs, right? Bitcoin has to create, finish this and then go higher. But not only that, we need Bitcoin dominance to be reaching the levels we have been talking about for weeks and months. Actually, we've been talking about 69% dominance since pretty much I started to make videos on this channel, early February and early March of 2024. So we've been talking about this goal for like pretty much over a year now, and nothing has changed. The bias has still remained the same. And I said it before and I'll say it again, once we kind of get near that, I'd say even 68% to roughly 71% is where most likely we're going to have a big break of structure, sideways movement, just the way we had it here for weeks before we sell off. And pretty much, right, like right here, this whole thing over here is going to be when altcoins are going to start shining, right? When Bitcoin dominance starts consistently going down, when things go sideways for a little bit, and then when the big dump happens, that's when altcoins will shine. I know a lot of people bought in, early 2024. So, they've been holding for over a year now. I get it. Some of people are getting impatient. But listen, ladies and gentlemen, right? The nothing has changed in terms of, you know, when things are going to explode. I know people made predictions expecting April, May to be exploding based off the previous year or the previous cycle. But listen, ladies and gentlemen, that was before with, less money. We're dealing with more money now. So things are going to always take a little bit longer, but the blueprint's still the same in terms of the steps we have to take. So, it is what it is. I personally, wish it was different, but this does create opportunity to be buying. We talked about how we pretty much had two very weak candles over here. The way the weekly closed, in middle March, and then the last March candle. I do expect overall the market to be turning around in April, May, and June, because that is when I expect the quarterly candle to do, and potentially, summer to fall time is when I expect altcoin season to be happening. At least, the first go at it, right? A double pump is never promised, but, you know, I do still expect there to be at least one type of pump for altcoins, and that summertime, early fall is when I personally expect, right? So, look, we talked about it in terms of technical analysis. That listen, right? We had to hold this key area over here unless, the markets wanted to go lower. And you can see, ladies and gentlemen, it was exactly perfect, right? We had the last closing structure here, we had some wicks here, and then we could see we were very, very weak for roughly 2 to 3 days, and then we just sold off, right? It's just very, very simple fundamentals right now. We could see that we are literally doing perfect um, retests on these levels, right? We are literally doing perfect retests on these levels. And yeah, I mean, it's just simple technical analysis right now. You also do have to realize that, some coins are not struggling as much as Turbo, because you got to realize some have way more real value compared to Turbo, because Turbo then is a meme coin. Even though I find Turbo a valuable meme coin compared to other meme coins, compared to certain utility coins and real world assets and DeFi and this and that, those pretty much clear Turbo any day. However, another thing is that we have a lot of imbalance, right? The structure we have really, really, really does matter. And we can see we had those couple of days of just straight green back in pretty much May of 2024, leaving no real support and resistance. So when there's no real support and resistance, when we start to mirror, right, the price action, right, once we start mirroring the levels where there is no, support and resistance, we're kind of going to fall off quickly, because that's just how the markets work, right? That is just how the markets work. But it's going to be the exact same thing once we start pumping, okay? Because there's a lot of imbalance on these candles over here, these months over here, then I do expect a nice recovery when we will be closer to altcoin season, and when altcoin season does start happening, okay? When it does start happening. So that is that. That is that when it comes to pretty much Turbo and its technical analysis. Um, you know, at this current moment, nothing really suggests any real reversals. Remember, there were always minor signs, but I always did say, for me to be super, super bullish, well, as of right now, we have to do step one, which is reclaim 0.02, right? And then after that, the big, big, big bullish indicator is reclaiming these levels over here at 0.0028, 0029, this is roughly somewhere here, right? Once we reclaim this, that's when we can say we're officially confirmation, higher time confirmation bullish. As of right now, we need to do baby steps, right? Most likely what's going to happen is price action is going to play however it wants to play out. Probably retest off here, probably go sideways once we reclaim these levels. Then I can say, okay, there are a good amount of reversal signs happening. It's very, very likely when we go up to here, that's when I can say I'm fully, fully confident that we are going to be bullish. And of course, the higher we go, the more confirmation, but the crappier price you are going to get in. The advice I have for people that are currently holding this coin, well, personally, for me, some of my positions are at a loss, and I am not looking to be cashing out at a loss. I rather just hold, especially that altcoin season has not happened. If you want to sell, you can, but you got to realize you are pretty much selling near the relevant bottoms. And at the end of the day, right, you have to make your own choice. But like I said, I gave out my plan. You got to follow it, or you could go with your own intuition and gut feeling. That is it, ladies and gentlemen. I hope you guys did enjoy, and I'll talk to you guys next time. Goodbye.